Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching my video today. My name is Michelle Hernandez and I will be presenting African cultures' views on death. The reason why I chose African cultures was because I didn't have much information or knowledge about African culture, specifically to death. And because I'm Native American, Mexican, and Spanish, I thought that it would be interesting just to see what their culture was like and if there was any similarities to mine since I'm Native American. So I wanted to do my presentation on African cultures because of that. But some information about African culture's view on death is that African religions believe that living and dying is understood as a dynamic process of human existence. So where the level of life is low, which is when we're dying, and when the level of life is high is when we are living. Death in Africa is not the end of all, but just the beginning of entering into a new realm. However, some of the traditions have been altered in the 20th century through the widespread influence of Christianity and Islam. So more of the information and traditions and beliefs that I will be going over is traditional to many of the communities still today in Africa. The goal of life in African tradition is to become an ancestor after death. And because of this, each person must have a proper death ritual so that the spirit is put to rest and is at peace so they can take their place as a protective ancestor. And the reason why I stated that was because Africa is so big. On the left-hand side, I have a map of Africa and the different nations in it. And most of these communities have similarities in their traditions, but sometimes they speak different languages. But as far as death goes, these communities still view death as not a means to the end of life, yet an entry into another realm. So because their communities are so so different than Americans, that some of these beliefs you hear and some of these rituals that are going to go on are going to be very surprising, or maybe they may not be surprising to you, but they still go on to this day, and they're very similar in Libya, Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, and South Africa. So most of these traditions have come from those areas. On the right-hand side is a burial ground in Africa, which you can see is very different than America's funerals. On the bottom right-hand side is Nelson Mandela in his coffin at his burial in his home. Nelson Mandela is a revolutionary, a political leader, and served as the president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. And so I wanted to choose him as a perfect example of Africa's culture's view on death. On the left-hand side, you can see a woman. She's singing and dancing as she partakes in the ceremony for Nelson Mandela's funeral. And just look at the picture and see what they're wearing, and it's very colorful. It doesn't look traditional to America, where we wear suit and ties and black dresses. And on the right hand side, you can see these men are dressed up in white. These are elders and getting ready to slaughter a cow as part of the ceremony in the funeral of Nelson Mandela. And they perform this slaughtering to cleanse the death of Nelson Mandela. They believe that it needs to be performed by ritual. The ritual needs to be performed by a senior person or a specialist. And in the middle of the picture is a younger Nelson Mandela. In this slide, I have a picture on the left-hand side of an example of a cow being slaughtered for a ceremony. Again, if you look around, everyone is dressed up in just normal clothes, and they aren't dressed up in black tie suits. And you could just take a look at their surroundings. It's not traditional in America. In the middle is a chief, and he is dressed up in a ceremony for death. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see Nelson Mandela's coffin, and it's covered with a cow skin. And generally, this was a symbolism for the person passing. So if the person's hierarchy was a king or a chief, that would decipher what kind of animal skin he would have, a lion or a cheetah. And on the right-hand side, I put the picture of the men holding the coffin, just because it gets a little ridiculous on these celebrations. They're so big and so extravagant for the ceremony for death. On the left-hand side, you can see women dressed up for ceremony of death. Again, it's sought as a celebration. It's almost as if it was their birthday, but they're having their funeral. Some comparisons and contrast is that they both dress up. American and African cultures both dress up for the ceremony. They both create a ceremony for the funerals. Both have music, whether it be drums in Africa or the US anthem in America. And there's sadness and that comes along with death in both cultures. They both see it as a sad moment in life. The differences are that America doesn't have any rituals that they do. They don't take the person to their home to cleanse the death and have that ritual performed by a specialist. Usually the ceremonies are done by a priest and not an elder in the community. And in America, there's no killings of animals to cleanse any death. So these are the differences and comparisons to death. Overall, they are both African cultures are both so extravagant in their ceremonies, and I hope you got a lot of information on the views on death. Thank you so much. Have a good day.